Anarchy and yaks? Who does he think he is? Why don't you get off that couch?
With tasty philosophy and deep yaks, this is Nick Hazelton with Anarcho Yakitalist.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Peaceful Anarchism on the Voluntary Virtues Network, theseedsofliberty.com, and theconsciousresistance.com. So today we have Nick Hazelton, who's coming in from Oregon. I want to say Oregon, but it's wrong, right? It's Oregon. Damn it. See?
That's right.
I'm sorry.
It's hard. And, a lot of people in the East don't know how to pronounce Oregon.
Right. And he's an anarchist, libertarian, and voluntarist, and he has a podcast. He's a founder of the Anarcho Yakitalist podcast, on which you can find on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And you can find all that information on anyak.com. So that's an-yak.com. And so today we're going to just talk about his podcast and how he became an anarchist, and what are some of the awesome people he's met, because being a podcaster, we meet some really cool people, and I love talking to fellow podcasters, because I think we're really the pioneers in the new age of decentralized information. So I have a lot of respect for people who do this. So Nick, thanks a lot for coming on the show.
Yeah, it's an honor to be on. I'm excited to talk.
Yeah. So I've seen you around Facebook, and I just recently heard about your podcast, maybe like a few months ago, and I like your style. It's really cool. I mean, you've been doing this since you were like 15. Like, goddamn, I can't believe that's awesome. You're already on the Liberty Radio Network, and
that's right.
You're already on the Freedom Fiends, which is really awesome. It's like a child prodigy in anarcho capitalism. So it's really really cool to see that. And I think. The next generation, as we're, educating each other, people are going to be raised with the idea of how, immoral and illegitimate statism is. And so that's why I have a lot of hope and optimism for the future. So, I mean, do you see that as well?
Yeah, no. And thank you for all that. I really appreciate it. But yeah, I've been lucky to meet a few more young libertarians, and it's really cool to see people just pop out of nowhere. Somehow they found the ideas of libertarianism through any 1,000 different ways. It's really fantastic. And I'm seeing a lot more optimism about it than I did when I think I first got into these kind of circles, the libertarian circles. I think that there are a lot of more people excited about it, and maybe it's just because my network has expanded to more positive people, but I don't know. But no, I feel the same way, and I'm excited to be somebody who's being used as an example.
So before we get into what you've been doing now recently, can you talk a little bit about your past and how you came to anarchism and voluntarism and libertarianism, and then eventually your podcast?
Yeah, sure. I'll try and do this as fast and as simple as I can. I started out getting interested in politics when I was about 12. I first started calling myself a libertarian during the 2012 election, I think it was. That doesn't sound right. I don't know. When it was. No, it would have been the 2008 election. No, when did McCain and Obama run?
Wait, you're asking me if I follow politics?
That's right. Whichever election that was. It was 2008.
Oh, Romney was 2008, right? McCain was 2012?
No, I thought it was, let's switch it.
See that? See how much I follow politics?
It's as much as you know, yeah.
All right. Go on.
So in 2008, I decided to call myself a libertarian because at school, in Oregon is a very liberal state, but that's only in certain areas. And I live in a rural area, so I had a lot of conservative friends, and I still do. So most of the people around here are conservative. But I had a few liberal friends in school. I went to a small school. And somehow we started talking to each other about who our parents were voting for, as if it really mattered, and he was cared, and I didn't care. Like I didn't care that much who was running at that time, and so I decided, well, I need to find a way to kind of bridge the middle and not get tugged between both sides, because I just didn't want to make people upset with me. So I asked my dad, well, who are you voting for? And he told me Bob Barr, the libertarian candidate, who's not really a libertarian, but he was running for the ticket then. So I decided, well, I'm just going to say I'm going to vote for Bob Barr. That's my guy, even though I was 12 or 8 or something. I couldn't vote at that time. But that's when I first started calling myself a libertarian. And when I started getting interested in politics, I just kind of stuck on that because that's what made sense. My grandfather and my great uncle and my dad would talk about politics in the living room. My dad doesn't really drink, but my grandpa and my uncle would have a few beers, and they'd all sit around and talk about politics. And they were both kind of right wingers, while my dad was a little bit more libertarian than they were. And so I kind of had that influence, and I took it. I stuck with it. I started getting into it more. I don't know exactly when I called myself. When I was really getting into it, I think I just said I was a libertarian. And I think I read Free to Choose by Milton Friedman. I was like, okay, this is the right path. This makes sense to me. And I kept going with it. I kept thinking, how small can government be? And so I started, well, federal government, we don't need that. State government, maybe. County governments, these things can be useful. But then I started thinking about it more, and I was like, well, I don't know. And I decided that I wanted to have, but it's just kind of at the same time, I decided I needed something to listen to stay informed. I didn't like Fox News. I didn't like MSNBC. I didn't like OPB, that's Oregon Public Broadcasting with the National Public Radio, NPR. Didn't like that stuff. I had the TuneIn app, and I looked up Freedom or Liberty or something, found the Freedom Fiends and Free Talk Live, and I started listening to the Freedom Fiends a whole bunch. And eventually I just got to the point where I was like, I'm an anarchist. Like I can't justify government anymore. Like this is it, and I'm done. So that's how I got there. And that was when I was 14. I decided to call myself an anarchist. That was actually I wrote it down in my calendar when I publicly came out as an anarchist.
Oh yeah, cool.
On a blog I was writing, and that was just 2 days ago. I think it was March or February 21st. So I've been about 3 years. I've been an anarchist.
Nice. Wow, you actually wrote down the day that you called yourself.
Yeah, right.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. With me, it was more a gradual thing. Reading The Creature from Jekyll Island and Finding Stefan Molyneux and about peaceful parenting and more about voluntarism and Larkin Rose. And yeah, I can't really say it's not. Yeah, with some people, it's like a light switch on and off. It's like it clicked that moment. But me, nah.
Yeah,
it's more a gradual thing. And then you started your well, actually, before your podcast. So tell me a little bit about your schooling. So you eventually dropped out of school, and so can you tell me a little bit about that? I think it's a good story.
Yeah, sure. So the small school I went to was started by my dad and a few community members here. I don't know why they all thought they should start a school, maybe because they didn't like the local school district. But anyway, they started a charter school, and it was kind of focused on, I don't know what really it was supposed to be at, but by the time I got into high school, it was K through 12. By the time I was in high school, I've been there my whole life. In high school, it was meant to be a college prep school. So we're all pretty much forced to take at least one AP class a year. I excelled pretty well. I don't want to brag, but no, I can do this sort of thing, right? I'm kind of a smart kid. So I had straight A's my freshman year. But at the same time, I wasn't happy with my accomplishments. I was just sick of school, and I could tell that this was not something I wanted to do. And I decided that I didn't want to become a lawyer. Like that was my plan in the beginning, because I didn't think I could do it. I didn't think I could do 7 years of school after high school. So I started kind of, I had some issues with my mental health, and I could tell, this is a problem. I have too much stress in my life. I need to cut something out. So I started trying to cut some things out. But it ended up that school, I could just tell it was the issue. And about the end of my freshman year, I decided that I wanted to get into agriculture. I started listening to School Sucks, and that's kind of what convinced me I don't need to. And the only reason why I'm here is because I'm being forced to be here, right? So I decided, well, this is not something I want to do. I need to figure out a way to either get rid of my workload here by getting extra credit really quickly so that I can just skate through the next 3 years on a few classes, or get out. And so I decided, well, my parents aren't going to let me get out. I'm going to try my best, but I'm just going to do some extra credit projects. And so I started working on that. Right at my end of freshman year, that's when I started the podcast. So I was using that podcast to get some extra credit in language arts and social studies. So I started doing that. But then about halfway through my sophomore year, I was like, well, this is stupid, dude. I don't want to jump all through these hoops that they're making me do it. I don't care about any of this. The only reason I'm here is because they won't let me leave. Because at that time, I had my yaks and I had a few pigs. So I decided, that was what I was going to do. I don't need school for that. I knew that. And so I started work on my parents. You got to let me out of here. My dad started listening to School Sucks because, it's just a great show. But, I turned him on to that. He was enjoying it. I could tell, I was trying to, warm both my parents up a little bit. Like they can kind of understand. But, they're still stuck on it. Nick needs to get his high school diploma because what if he fails? What if the business fails? What will he have? So I told him, I was like, well, you know what? If you don't let me drop out, I'm going to fail out. And I just stopped. I just stopped doing my homework and stuff. I didn't do anything in school. And so eventually it got to the point where my dad's like, okay, we got to strike a deal with him. Because, I wasn't passing some of my classes. So I wasn't even going to get the credit no matter what. So he said, all right, if you make a self-education plan, I'll let you drop out. And so I drafted up a plan and say, this is how I'm going to educate myself. This is what I'm going to do outside of school. And I finished my sophomore year up, turned that in to him and my mom. And they decided, all right, begrudgingly, we're going to let you do it, Nick. So I didn't have to return this last school year. This would have been my junior year. So yeah, I dropped out. I like to say I rose out of high school.
Nice.
I think that was a term Derek J. Freeman came up with.
Yeah. Dropout definitely has a negative connotation, but I'm just curious. When you say you wrote down ways that you'll be educating yourself, what did you say there?
Mostly I laid out what my goals were. So I decided that I'd like to be living decently comfortable at age 25. Be financially independent, as in that I am providing my own way. I'm not really struggling to get basic necessities, and that, and just that's kind of my main goal. And so I said that I was going to start this farm business. So that's mainly what it was. This is how I'm going to meet the goals with those businesses, and this is what they will teach me. Meeting these goals, and this is what that's going to teach me. And then having some other things in there, like I'm going to listen to this many podcasts a week. I'm going to try and read this many books, and all that sort of thing. And it's not something that I reference very often anymore, but that was basically what the deal was: is lay out the goals, say what you're going to do, and then what will they teach you.
So the yaks, there's no family history of farming or raising animals or livestock in your family, is?
No, actually, my family has been in this area for over 100 years. I'm a Barnhart on my mom's side, and they came in and bought this whole little tiny valley here in Oregon. So we've had the farming background, and my grandfather was into the farming, but he kind of found out he didn't really like it, so we decided to do something else. But the rest of my family on my grandmother's side, a lot of them are still into agriculture. My cousins down the road are running beef, so I was around that all the time. And I started doing 4-H with them, my cousins, and then in the last few years, I started slowly kind of helping them out in some things like baling hay. And this last year, I was doing tractor work when we were baling hay. And then I did the last thing I did, and that was what decided I wanted to be into agriculture, is I was doing 4-H. And that was what I enjoyed. Like this thing it was fun working with animals. And I did my steer and I made quite a bit of money. So I was like, oh, this is actually kind of nice. Let's do it. But I didn't want to do, I didn't want to do cattle because I thought that was boring. And I wanted to be a little bit different and unique. So I just decided somehow.
You're just an edgy teenager. You want to be different.
That's right.
You're just trying to be different, right?
So that's why I got into yaks.
So before we get into the other stuff, can you tell me real quick, what's a typical day for a yak farmer? Just curious.
I don't know about everybody else who raises yaks, but right now, the recent routine has been milking goats because that's also what we have. So I get up, milk goats with my dad. If I'm tired, I go back to bed. Or then I get up, I make my breakfast, and I start working on whatever I have on my to-do list. Or I'll plan my day, kind of write down the things I need to do, make sure when my appointments are, if I have them, and then I just kind of proceed on doing that to-do list for the rest of the day.
So primarily, you get your income from milking.
No, actually, most of the money is coming in from pigs.
Pigs. Oh,
selling of pigs. Yeah,
slaughtering the pigs or just selling them.
I sell them on the hoof, and then we take them to a butcher for the customer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and what about like the yaks? Like any milking of the yaks or slaughtering of the yaks? Or?
I would really like to start milking, but right now I just can't work with my yaks because I have a mean bull. So I just haven't been able to work with them in the last like 6 months. I guess it's bad. It's been about 6 months. So I haven't been able to work with them. But I would like to milk them someday. I'd also like to get fiber from them this spring. But right now I've only butchered one bull and I'm selling him slowly right now by the package. So I'm selling hamburger and steaks and roasts and whatever just out of the freezer we have in the shed. And I've been hitting a few places. But the yaks doesn't... They mature very slowly, and that's why I added pigs into the operation. Because the pigs will age in a year, and they multiply like rabbits. And then the yaks age in 2 years, and they only have one calf per pregnancy. So I've only sold half of the yak that I have.
So can you label it like, I guess it's not organic, right? But like grass-fed or free range or pastured or anything like that?
I mean, I don't label it as anything, but I advertise that the yaks are 100% grass-fed, that they're not, I don't use chemicals, no hormones, and no antibiotics. That's pretty much all I say, but yeah, I don't have organic status.
Cool. All right. So can you go into a little bit of like the, some of your recent episodes that you're most proud of? You mentioned the Freedom Umbrella one. I guess can you go into a little bit of that and what that's about? Sure.
Yeah. The idea that I try to push on my show is how to live a good life. I look at philosophy, what's the goal here? What are we trying to do? And we're all trying to enjoy life. So how are we going to do that? And part of my thing is that you really need personal liberty. That's something at least I value and many libertarians value, right? That's why we're libertarians, is because we value liberty. So I got turned on to Liberty Under Attack radio. Shane Radliff puts that on. He invited me to be a part of a libertarian roundtable discussion on this thing that him and a guy named Kyle Reardon are working on called the Freedom Umbrella of Direct Action. And I thought, man, this is brilliant. I'm totally hopping on this. And there are a few other people there like Cal Molinet and Davi Barker, names that pop in my head right away. I think there were a few more people there, but it was interesting. We got to talk about this thing. It's focused on what can you do outside of the system to bring more liberty in your own personal life. So it focuses on these skill sets, or projects, whatever you want to take. So a few of them are unschooling. There's getting into some agorist sort of things, and then there's philosophy stuff like Stoicism that I suggested to put in there. So I really liked that idea, and I decided, well, I got to have Kyle and Shane to talk about it because I think it's super important. And so I was really happy with that episode. And I think that the Freedom Umbrella it's a really great project. And if you guys aren't familiar with it, definitely look into it. If you go to libertyunderattack.com, it should be up on one of his little top bars or whatever that is. And that was very interesting. I'm really happy with that show.
Yeah, the Freedom Umbrella. Yeah, and that's the first time I heard about it. And it's definitely an awesome idea. So it's basically putting all agorist approaches in one area, right? That's basically what it is.
Yeah, pretty much.
How to live as free as possible. Yeah, and that's awesome because as as an anarchist and as volunteers, we constantly people accuse us like you complaining about everything. Well, what's your solution, right? So it's nice to not only to say what we oppose, but to say what we support, right? So sure, we're anti-statism. Like I don't even like the term anti-government because it has the connotation like if we just get the people in Washington D.C., if we just like push them out into the ocean, we're going to be fine. No, they're not the problem, right? The problem is in the minds of the people, right? That believe that these people have any legitimate authority over our lives and have and are entitled to the fruits of our labor and our children. So
yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, that's a great idea because people the first step is understanding the problem, right? And once you can do that, once you can see what reality is and how humanity is besieged by all these people, then we can move forward and say, okay, now what do we do to remedy that problem? And I basically tell people just just ignore them. It's like people are afraid of of some kind of Hitler or a Mao or anybody, crazy people like that coming. And I love when Larkin Rose he says how I'm not afraid of the Hitlers or the Maos or the Stalins or the Pol Pots of the world, right? What I'm afraid of is the millions of people that hallucinate that they have an authority or power over us, and when they do, and when they carry out and enforce their wretched laws and regulations, that's when the violence begins, right? So Hitler himself killed very few people, right? But people acting in the name of statism have done massive amounts of evil in history. And so agorism is really striking at the heart. It's like I remember a quote I heard, forgot who said it, which is like something like, libertarians know the idea of freedom, anarchists understand the idea of freedom, and agorists practice freedom.
That's right.
And I thought that was awesome, right? What do you think?
I think that's great. I think that's spot on.
Yeah. So it's definitely an awesome idea to put all of those things in in one place where people can check, and I'll definitely be recommending that to people to send them over there. Basically I tell people just live your life. Forget about the government, forget about laws, forget about taxes. Just live your life. Be a decent person. Be, compassionate, peaceful, and gentle, and kind, and just imagine that they don't exist. That's it. Just imagine the sociopaths don't exist. And if you do that, they have no power. They're like the crazy man in a straitjacket. You don't have to kill him. You just put him in a padded room so he doesn't hurt anybody. And he's fine. Don't worry about him. Just live your life. So, yeah.
Yeah, so that's been part of the thing, right? Is trying to live as an example. I think that I don't know many libertarians personally, and I do see some very successful people out there who are doing it, especially in the permaculture movement. I see a few libertarians. In fact, Jack Spirko calls himself an anarchist, and he's part of the Survival Podcast. And so I see those people as being very convincing, as people who people just respect. Like, these guys are very impressive. So I think that that's something to keep in mind is look, how many people really get convinced by online arguments compared to people like Stefan Molyneux who lay out their ideas like that. And then also look at people who people respect and who can you point to in your local community that is really great? And wouldn't it be awesome if that was you, and they were, or at least if this person was a libertarian?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I kind of try and do, is use my business and my practices to try and, hey, show like, yeah, I am a libertarian. I'm very vocal about it, but I don't really like to argue with people that much. And if you want to argue with me, man, I'll do it. But
I'm waiting for your first debate. You haven't done a debate yet, right?
I don't think I've done any Skype debates yet.
Yeah,
I did do a small debate. I had a little bit of we argued about the freedom umbrella, in fact, on that episode. I think it was Kyle Reardon and Davi Barker and I were kind of going back and forth on something. But no, I don't debate people. But it's fun. I love debating. It's fun.
Right. You reminded me of things like Airbnb and Uber, and Lyft. And the awesome thing about those entities is that they didn't ask for permission, right? They didn't like submit paperwork to their local, county, town hall or state legislators saying, "Can I do this?" They just did it. Like there wasn't a precedent before they did it, and they just did. And now the local and state governments are saying, like, all right, these people are doing stuff that we don't like. What do we do about it? So it's kind of funny to see how they just don't ask for permission. They just start their business, and they don't care about the health department, the state department. They just like, come and regulate us, if you dare.
Right.
And that's what we need more of, is just people that just start businesses to forget about if it's like if there's a license for it, or if you need to get a permit, just start doing it, and start growing it. And imagine if so many people started doing that, they would have no power whatsoever. It'd be beautiful, I think.
Right. And so I don't know if it's unfortunate or fortunately, but we've taken more of a legal route. We're not doing very much agorism with the farm, partly because it's just easier, because if you get sued for selling raw milk, then that's not really good. So you have to set up your LLC so you can have your protect your assets.
right, yeah.
But still, it's something that honestly, it's not that hard to get away with selling raw milk. And I'm not saying we've done it before, but I can speculate and say that it's not that hard if you know the right people, and if you have people that are close to you who are interested in it, they're not going to turn you in. Then hey, dude, just start doing it. I'm not advocating for illegal activities, but
well, I wouldn't go so far as to say that for me, but what really saddens me is when I see these these idiotic order followers go to an Amish dairy farm with guns drawn and hold up these these Amish people and where's your milk? Where's your cheese? And then they just proceed to just dump gallons and gallons of this stuff because they were told to. And it's just so sad. Like, how can people live with themselves for doing something like that? Like, this is the law, like, I mean, what kind of atrocities in history have been justified supposedly by saying this is the law? We got to follow the law. And I love Howard Zinn. He said that the problem with humanity is not in disobedience, it's with obedience. Right? Doing stuff because you were told to do it, right? Or because it was just your job, right? So people trying to figure out, what's legal rather than what's right and what's moral. And that's what I love about Voluntarists and Anarchists, is we always concern ourselves with what's moral. And I love that. So can you get into your other one, your other show with Daryl Becker? You talked about metacognition, which is a term I never heard before. So talk about that and explain what that is.
Sure. So I give a little bit of background on what that kind of ties into. Is I had Daryl Becker on last year in about November or October, I think, and we talked about a few methods. We talked about a critical thinking method, which is we use the Trivium method of critical thinking. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, logic, rhetoric, grammar, something like that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So, and it's an interesting thing because I think that that's an important thing to keep in mind is, most of us are critical thinkers, especially in this libertarian movement. We didn't. Most of us are not just brought up and indoctrinated into libertarianism. We start out as statists and move towards that because we think critically. But what you find is a lot of people don't have a critical thinking method, which isn't necessarily it's not necessarily necessary to be a critical thinker, but it's very useful. So I found that the critical thinking method of the Trivium was a nice way to organize your thoughts. So you start out with grammar, you gather data, then you go into logic, and you make connections between the data. Make it make sense. You weed out some inconsistencies. And then you go into rhetoric, and you make it applicable to your own life. So I think that's a very nice method to use, and it can help you organize things. And we also talked about nonviolent communication, which can fit in there, I think, pretty nicely because nonviolent communication has a lot of criticism from a lot of people, and for good reasons. But I think a lot of people misunderstand what it's really about. And what it's about is paying attention to your values and desires. NVC terminology calls those needs. I don't really like the term needs for certain things. Like, I don't think you need, I can't think of one off, I guess, emotional intimacy. You don't need that to live, but it is something that you value. So it teaches you to pay attention to what you're thinking, what you're feeling, and then tying it back to what values are being met or not met. I think that's very valuable in being able to understand what's going on inside yourself. So Daryl Becker and I just continued that and built up upon sort of that thing of critical thinking and these kind of cognitive skill sets. We started talking about metacognition, and what metacognition means is thinking about thinking. Meta talk would be something like talking about talking. Meta singing would be singing about singing. So we started talking about meta talk and metacognition. I thought it was very interesting because he laid out a few little things that he does when mostly getting into a conversation. And this kind of fits in with the NVC stuff, where the first thing he does is he looks at the concerns that people are expressing. What are people concerned about, and then is there any evidence to back up those concerns? And he says to apply it to yourself first. So look at what concerns do you have. Do you have any evidence for those concerns? Excuse me. And then you move on to what claims are being made. And so you look at what are people saying, what are you saying, and then what is the evidence for the claims that you're making. So you kind of go through that, and kind of it fits with the Trivium in that you're trying to do your grammar work here. You're trying to gather data and making sure that you know what's going on here as best as you can, and making sure that is this productive. If you're talking to somebody else, you're going to look at the attitudes too, right? And you're going to look at the attitudes, I guess, to yourself. So you want to make sure that you know what's going on in this conversation, and then you want to make sure that this is a conversation you really want to have. So a lot of the time, people don't have the right attitude going into a discussion. A lot of people don't want to change their opinions. So they're not really in this thing, in this curious or open-minded attitude. They don't have that. They have a very confident and arrogant attitude where they think they're right. I'm going to convince this person. So kind of going through those steps will allow you to be able to first, if you apply it to yourself, kind of understand what's going on inside your own head. And then after you can kind of do that, you might want to apply it or start trying to apply it to other people and kind of see if you can identify the concerns and claims and the attitudes that these people have. And I thought that it's an interesting piece of cognitive skills coupled with some of the NVC skills and Trivium method, and then these metacognition things. It was a very interesting episode. I don't know if I'm quite explaining it and giving it justice, but I think that they are very useful if you can learn how to apply them, especially to yourself. So that's if I can repeat myself. Apply it to yourself and then others afterwards. So that was kind of the idea. Hopefully I'm not being too rambly.
No, it's awesome. Yeah, the idea of nonviolent communication I have heard recently through Adam Kokesh. He talks about that. And yeah, a couple of this one woman I talked to, Delilah Declare on Facebook.
Katie Testa.
Right, that's her. Yeah, Katie Testa. She she talks about that, and I haven't read the book, but a lot of it I feel like I do already when I talk to people, and so I guess one thing that I do is like you try to understand where the other person's coming from, right? And I saw like when I interviewed Brett Venat at the Liberty Fest, I saw him last year in October, and he talked about the nonviolent communication. He's really great at that. I mean, like really sitting down with somebody and getting to know why they support let's say public schools or welfare or whatever, why they support some government program, and try to get to the bottom of it, and why are you so passionate, and really try to analyze their thought process. And I guess Larkin Rose does this a little bit, like analyzing somebody psychologically with his project The Mirror, and without aggression, or without let's say antagonizing the person and making them angry. Because once you do that, once you of course you don't insult them, but once you make them angry, then that's when the barriers go up. And I think it's called the backfire effect, where sometimes the more you try to convince somebody, once they're angry, the opposite happens. They just hunker down and put their barriers up, and that's it. You're not getting through to anything, right? And so, stuff like nonviolent communication, and also humor. We were talking about before we got on the show about the importance of using sense of humor and comedy to break a tense situation. And I know myself, I tend to do that a lot. Of course, making fun of yourself, that's one of the easiest things to do, because everyone's always ready to laugh when you make fun of yourself. So I find those to be very valuable when talking to people about this idea of voluntarism and anarchy. So even before I mention those words, I talk about this kind of stuff, and then they say, wait, so what are you talking about? You talking about anarchy? I'm like, well, what's wrong with that word? Well, let's examine that.
Sure.
So go ahead.
That's the things that I found is that I got into these NVC and not the Trivium as much, but I got into nonviolent communication and trying to be a little bit more empathetic when talking to people, because in my short life, I found I've ruined some relationships because of the way I was trying to advocate some of my ideas, even with libertarianism, and it's kind of unfortunate, and I didn't like that. So I try to learn quickly, and no, that's something I try to realize. And I like the way Daryl Becker phrases this. It's one of his metaphors is you want to build bridges of empathy with people so that you can move your 18-wheelers of logic across to them.
That's awesome. I like that.
Right. So, and then that's part of it, like humor or using, trying to build this really close connection with this person, so that you can both be on the same level and make sure you understand each other, and that you're looking for a mutually beneficial interaction. And you can't, you can say, well, yeah, of course, convincing them and telling them that they're wrong is going to be beneficial to them, but you have to convince them that it's beneficial. So you either got to let them come to it on their own, or you got to find a way to show them in a nice way, like a salesperson, that this is what you want, right? And humor definitely helps out with that. That's something that I don't think that I am very good at in these kinds of conversations. I think that I can be funny, but it's usually in situations where I'm really comfortable with, my close friends. They probably would say that I'm not very funny. I would not be surprised if they said that. Hopefully that they're joking, because they're funny too. I don't know, but no, I think that it's something very useful, and I love talking to people that are funny, right? That's just something that's fun.
Yeah, definitely. I've done stand-up comedy in 2000. It was 2010 to 11 to 2012, and I performed about 40 times, and it was some experience learning how to not only. So there's one thing, right? When you can make family and close friends laugh, that's one thing. When you can make complete strangers that you never ever met laugh, that's something else, right? And so too often people say, well, you know, I can make my friends and family laugh, so I guess I can do stand-up comedies. It doesn't always transfer, you know. It's
Sure.
it's slightly different, and it's difficult to challenge. And one thing with me is I love challenges. That's been the theme of my life. Like if somebody tells me you can't do that, it's too hard, what do you think I'm going to try to do? You know. And so many things in my life, like stand-up comedy. I mean, who wants to do stand-up comedy? Like you just wake up like, you know what I want to do? I want to go on stage just with a mic in front of complete strangers and try to make them laugh. That's what I want to do. Like who says that? Nobody, right?
Right.
There's a poll that I remember reading that people were asked, what's your number one fear in life, right? And can you guess what it was?
Stage fright.
Public
speaking.
Public speaking.
Yeah.
Number 2 is death. Okay. So more people are afraid of public speaking than death, right? So it kind of shows you how not many people, you know, are natural public speakers. Therefore, you know, if you want to improve your, you know, public speaking skills or just interrelational skills or social skills with people, you got to work on it. It's a skill. It's a muscle like anything else. You know, you want to get better at something, you work on it, and you put yourself in difficult situations sometimes, and you learn from it.
Right.
Good. So I think that you know, that's really awesome. And then the nonviolent communication, you know, go definitely hand in hand. And I think that I've you know, slowly like when I talk to people in public, like I talk to people in, like, you know, grocery stores, in the mall, you know, various other stores, or in the park, you know, because I homeschool my kids, so I go to parks and playgrounds a lot, so I get into talks about, often starting with schooling, you know, and then raising parents, and then raising kids, and then you know, and then so I'm around a group of homeschoolers, so you know, it's kind of I have the foot in the door. It's like, well, you distrust government schools already, right? All right, now let's take that a step further. If the government can't do education right, what do you think about something else? Like, what do you think about, you know, the monetary system, or, you know, you know, labor laws or whatever, you know? So that's how so you don't, do you talk to your friends or family about like this, like when you're in public, do you talk about this stuff at all?
I don't do it a whole lot anymore. I used to be very, very vocal about it. And I mean, I got good at arguing because my dad loved to play devil's advocate with me. So I'd say something and he'd argue with me all the time. And so I'd perfect my arguments with him. Cool. So that was really fun. And so we still do it a little bit now. But no, I just don't really like to. But most of the time, I don't. I just use the podcast and to Freedom Fiends as my outlet.
So another tactic that Larkin Rose mentioned, which I thought was pretty awesome, is because some people you can convince just by repetition. You know, like some people require a book. Like, you know, they need to read a book, like on, you know, human action or economics, or they need like theoretical, philosophical books, right? And then they're going to be convinced. Other people are a little bit more simple. They just need repetition. So with those people, you know, Larkin Rose recommends, you know, sometimes what's enough for some people is you just go up to somebody in public, you know, you just say, hey, the government's illegitimate, and then walk away. Just walk away. And if that's the first time they hear that, they're going to say, that's interesting. All right, never thought of that. But if that's the second time, they're going to say, you know what? I heard that before. Somebody said that. And for some people, that's enough. It's like if they hear something often enough, they're like, you know what? Maybe that's right. And I guess in one sense, it's a logical fallacy. It's like the appeal to popularity, right? Just because something is popular doesn't make it true. But unfortunately, it works with some people.
Right.
And the other thing that I thought of was this guy Donnie Giebert. He runs on the Seeds of Liberty podcast, he used to run this Force to Freedom podcast, which was it was headed by him and another guy, and they were both veterans, and it was basically focused on talking to veterans. How do we communicate the message of liberty and voluntarism to veterans, which is very important and very difficult, right? Most of the time. And most of the time, they will not listen to you or me because we don't have experience in that, and we can't talk from personal experience. And so why are they going to listen to us? Like, you don't know what I went through, right? You know, that's what they're going to say.
Mm-hmm.
So, some of his suggestions are, when he talks to somebody, he's like, before you talk about anything about freedom or anarchy or anything, you got to lubricate the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, take him out for a beer, go to the bar, say, come on, I'll buy you a drink. Come here, let me buy you a drink. And most people have alcohol in their system. Like, all right, now we can talk, and everything's calm. You know, less fiery emotions. You know, people are happier generally. And the other thing is that, you know, inside of most people's minds, he gives the analogy of a man on an elephant, right? So the logical brain. Did you heard this before?
Yeah, the elephant and the rider. Yeah.
So the man on the elephant is the logical, rational part of the brain, and the elephant is the emotional part, right? So you can do your logical arguments all you want, and the guy's going to understand. The guy's going to say, all right, I'm going to go this way, but the elephant's like, nope, I'm going this way. And there's no changing that. And so sometimes, you know, like you know, I guess this goes along with nonviolent communication, in that we have to try to find common ground and connect with them on that level, right? So so I thought those are some fascinating things that you reminded me of. What do you think of those?
I think that, that's totally right. I think that's awesome. And I think one of those examples of the repetition is the Google Voluntaryism
you're right.
pages, right? I love that idea. Just slap the Google Voluntarism on any meme. I think that's just brilliant. And that's great. And I think that's one of the things that's very encouraging, right? You know, just throw it on there, and someone's like, well, yeah, I am gonna Google that. Like, of course, if I saw that all the time, I would then that's something that what's that guy David Wolf does. And I don't like him because I think he's fraud, but I didn't see that.
That's the guy from Food Matters, right? I think, or Food Inc. He's like the nutritionist and like motivational speaker, kind of, about nutrition and health, and right.
Yeah, but he throws out a lot of kooky stuff. Like, it's just stuff that
Like,
if
what?
you look into it, David Avocado Wolf, look him up. And a lot of the stuff he tries to sell is just ridiculous. And the way he's gotten popular is he finds these memes related to health and spirituality or something, just throws his name on there, David Wolf. Yeah, and so there's a lot of issues in there. People have given him a lot of criticism.
Oh, wow.
But that method is very useful, and I think that it's great that people are employing that in the libertarian circles.
Yeah, I think it was Dave Painter who started that Facebook page, Google Voluntarism, and it is genius. You know, it's just like constant repetition, and I was just thinking now, like, if like some people, I guess, write it on dollar bills, just Google Voluntarism, you know. And but I could also imagine, like, you know, I don't know about an anarchist, but somebody who's just rebellious, who just wants to rebel for the sake of rebellion, and they're gonna look at that and they're like, now that you told me to do that, I'm not gonna do it. Just because you told me, I'm not gonna do it. So I guess for those people it could backfire, but
sure.
You can't win them all, you know. So everybody needs a different method. You know, you got to tailor your message, you know. So but yeah, I think you're doing a great job with your podcast, and I'm thrilled that it's gaining momentum, because I think you said in the beginning you were doing it more sporadically, right, less frequently, and now you're doing it like once a week.
Yeah, I try to do it once a week. Sometimes I release a little bit of extra content.
Cool. All right. Yeah. So I definitely encourage everyone to check out his podcast. He's he's growing, and he's one of the youngest. I mean, do you know of any anarchist, anarcho-capitalist podcasts, that are younger than you? don't
I
think
don't
so.
know of any podcasters that are younger than me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's anybody who's younger than me out there. And if there are, man, get in contact with me.
All
Let's
right.
let's talk because I
God,
think that's great. I love encouraging young people.
exactly. God damn it, got a network. You know, that's how it is.
That's right.
That's how to strengthen, it, especially if you live in the backwoods in the middle of nowhere like Nick does.
That's right.
Thank God for the internet.
Foothills
Right?
of Oregon.
Thank God for the internet. Like, where would you be without the internet? You know,
Oh man,
alone
that's
with your
right.
alone with your yaks and your anarchist message. And who would listen to you without the internet? You know, you'd just be shouting into the hills. Hello, I hate government.
Google voluntary. Well, I wouldn't have internet, so I couldn't say Google.
I know. Right, exactly. So, I mean that brings up another can of worms, which is the internet, which is I think that one of the wonderful things that has catalyzed all these new, people that are being more skeptical of the system and the state and things like that. And I liken it to, in the 1400s when Gutenberg came out with his printing press and how that revolutionized the spread of information and how that threatened the church at that time, where every book before then was not only was it handwritten and hand copied, but it was mostly everything was in Latin and no peasant at that time could read Latin. And so they had a tremendous power. So now they can print books. They can not only print books, but they can do so in their own local languages. So it's just empowered them. And so I think that, magnified by like 1,000 or 10,000 is what the internet has done. And it's just beginning, it's the tip of the iceberg. And, my kids that are 5 and 3 are going to grow up in a world so much different than I did. And I think the internet is breaking down barriers, destroying nationalism, because how can you hate somebody from another country when you can just Facebook friend request them, see what they post, or Skype chat with them and say, do you want to blow up a building? Like, do you want to suicide yourself? No, all right, because that's what I heard.
Sure.
You can't hate people when you have all this communication. So I'm very optimistic for the future. But if you wanna finish up, any last words about your podcast or anything on your mind before we sign off?
No, I mean, I guess definitely check out the podcast. I'm on multiple, what do you call them? Podcatchers, isn't that what they are? Like TuneIn and Stitcher and whatever they all are.
I don't know. They're hosting sites or something. I don't know.
I don't know, but I'm on most of those, so you can find them.
So what? So Podomatic, Stitcher, right?
Yep, I'm on iTunes, Stitcher, Podomatic, the Liberty Radio Network, and then my website. And if you look up Nick Hazelton,
no. Okay, go ahead. Sorry. No, because I just have iTunes and Stitcher. I'm like, damn, he's got all those. Shoot.
it's not too hard to get on TuneIn.
Yeah.
And Podomatic is a little bit of extra work, but you can do it like for free. You can just do it. There's not a lot of stuff going on in Podomatic. Honestly, I don't get like any traffic. But anyway,
okay.
Yeah, you can find me. If you just look up Nick Hazelton, you'll find my website. If you go to the posts, I think you can go underneath. You can follow me on Twitter, and then you can also like the podcast Facebook page. And then if you add me on Facebook, if we have mutual friends, I'll add you. But please, definitely send me a message. Just let me know why you're adding me, and just so we can talk and expand our networks. I love it. But yeah, definitely check out the podcast, Anarcho Yakitalist podcast at an-yak.com. That's an-yak.com.
Awesome. Yes, definitely. Please check them out. We need to grow our networks and spread the liberty message. And I think that, the more people understand, what liberty truly means, what voluntarism means, what self-ownership, property rights, non-aggression means, I think, statism is on its deathbed. It's a dinosaur relic, or it's a relic of a barbarous age. And it will be confined to the dustbin of history, along with chain slavery, and Yeah, and other things like that. So I think that it's a one-way street, one-way path to voluntarism, and I'm doing my best, and Nick's doing his best to encourage that. Just help it along. Just come on, quick, a little bit quicker, please. I want to be a little freer before I die. Okay, please, quick. So, well, yeah, what's amazing, really quick, is that a lot of the abolitionists of the 19th century, did not live to see. So, some of them did not live to see the end of slavery. And that's okay. It's like maybe we're not going to live to see the end of statism, but that's okay. We did our part, and maybe hopefully our kids or their kids will live to see it. And, I think that what's important is that we're doing our best to, provide a little bit more freedom, a little bit more peace, a little bit more prosperity in the world, and less coercion, less aggression, less harm, right? I think, it's like, people say, talk about anarchy and voluntarism, like, you're so radical, you're so extreme. You're like, I'm not really, because what I'm basically saying is, like, if we have to abide by morality, basic morality, why don't they have to abide by basic?
Right.
Because that's so extreme of a message, like, and the way Dana Martin, when she phrased it, when I was interviewing her, she said, kindness is revolutionary. And isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? Like, you have to say kindness is revolutionary. What kind of a world do we live in when you have to say that?
It's crazy.
Yeah. So awesome, awesome conversation, Nick. Thanks a lot for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. So if anybody wants, actually, before we go, let me just ask you, Nick, if somebody wants to donate, can they donate to you?
Yeah, you can donate Bitcoin or through PayPal if you go to the website. I think it's and-yak.com/donate. But yeah, you can find the donate page if you go to my website.
Yes, help him out. Help out his yaks. We need more yaks in the world. That's the other problem with the world. Too much statism, not enough yaks.
That's right.
So help him out. And if you want to donate to my show, you can do so through Bitcoin, through PayPal, or Patreon. It's patreon.com/peaceful anarchism to help me out. I love having wonderful guests like Nick here, and I want to do more. And monetary compensation is always appreciated. We're free market capitalists, so we believe in value for value, right? If you find value in this content, you can please patronize it. That's how it's the only democracy I support is voting with your dollars, right? So you want to see something more of in the world, you buy it, right? That's your vote. So, and also if you want to leave any message or comment on my shows, you can either comment under the video, or you can send me an email, DaniloKipu@yahoo.com. That's Danilo, Danilo, Kipu, Kipu @yahoo.com. So send me a message if you have any comments about the show. So Nick, thanks a lot. Really appreciate it. So this is Peaceful Anarchism on the Voluntary Virtues Network and the seedsofliberty.com and theconsciousresistance.com. Wishing everyone have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye.